Warning, this video contains team selection and captain choices which some viewers may find offensive.
Hey guys, and welcome back to FPL TV. Before looking to Game Week 15 and my team and transfer plans, let's first look back to the previous Game Week 14 and see how the side got on there. There was a slight change to my transfer plans last week. Initially, my potential move was Zaha to Bukayo Saka, but with Man City's lineup notably getting leaked shortly before the Game Week deadline, and with the knowledge then that Phil Foden was benched in the early kickoff, I ended up moving Phil Foden onto Bukayo Saka instead. Just 5 minutes into Arsenal's game against Forest, this was looking a move that could considerably pay off, with Saka assisting Martinelli for a combined return between the pair. However, frustratingly, Saka then went off injured shortly after. Considering his replacement in that game, Reece Nelson, then went on to score 2 goals in a 5-0 win, and considering the fact that Saka was one of my biggest differentials last week, well, there was definitely a huge feeling of what could have been there. In the end, despite Foden getting benched and coming on for a 1-pointer, keeping Zaha instead didn't make much difference anyway, just 1 goal in his last 7 games now. The good news, however, at least, is that apparently Saka is back in training now, so it's likely I won't need to worry about moving him back on this week, especially with some other issues elsewhere in my squad. Due to that early Man City team leak, it was also confirmed that Haaland wasn't starting either, so for that reason I switched the captaincy to Mo Salah before the deadline. In fairness, in the end, Haaland didn't even make the squad, and therefore the Mo Salah vice-captaincy would have come in anyway. Game Week 14 was a game week with lots of little frustrations really, another one being the fact that Ivan Toney picked up his 5th booking of the season in the 93rd minute against Wolves, not to mention his blank to go with it. That last-minute yellow card now means he'll be suspended for his Game Week 15 fixture, Nottingham Forest of all games, arguably one of the best available. So that's definitely frustrating, even more so considering the same thing happened with James Maddison in my squad just a few game weeks back. The positive of the game week, I guess, was the fact that all 4 of my defensive options returned, with City, Newcastle and Palace all keeping clean sheets. Certainly a big boost for the game week in general, but sadly in an FPL season so competitive as this one, even a full house of defensive returns wasn't enough for a rise in the rankings, not to mention even a Mo Salah captaincy return not being enough as well. So for Game Week 14, it was a score of 62, a score that looked very solid on paper last week, but still resulted in a red arrow in the end. My side dropped from 990k to 1.1 million. A tough one to comprehend last week really, considering I really liked the look of my team and almost the entire 11 had home fixtures against favourable opposition. Ironically, before the Arsenal fixture, I was looking at a green arrow, and even despite Saka and Martinelli both combining for a goal in that game too, incredibly, at the end of that fixture alone, I ended up looking at a red arrow instead. Gabriel Jesus and the Arsenal defence of course doing the damage there, particularly the popular Saliba. There's just 2 game weeks to go before the World Cup break now, so the target still remains to simply get back inside the top 1 million over the next 2 weeks. However, given how the last game week went, and looking at my team for the upcoming Game Week 15, I'm not quite as confident of getting there. So let's move on to Game Week 15 now, look at my current team lineup, as well as some potential transfer moves. Also, if you do enjoy the content here at FPL TV, then be sure to leave a like and get subscribed. You can also hit the notification bell so you always know when a new video goes live. As mentioned, looking at my team for Game Week 15 doesn't make for good reading really, with the majority of my players away from home and some potentially tricky fixtures to boot. There's Fulham away to Man City, Liverpool away to Tottenham, Palace away to West Ham, not to mention my double Arsenal attack away to Chelsea. Granted, it does improve things a little bit to see Chelsea lose 4-1 to Brighton last time out, and the fact that Saka is back in training does allow me to focus my transfers elsewhere. But still, an away trip to the Bridge isn't an easy task on paper, and in general, it's difficult to envision a green arrow from this lot over the weekend, so I think I'm going to need a bit of good fortune. Before discussing my potential transfer plans, I do want to point out that this week, anything I discuss will very much be hypothetical, because as things stand, we still have the uncertainty regarding Erling Haaland. The reason for it being particularly hypothetical this week is that for Game Week 15, once again Man City are the first team to play following the Game Week deadline, and considering there was an early leak regarding Haaland and Foden over on Twitter last Game Week, well there's every chance that could happen again. For this reason, I'm doing my best to hold on to my free transfer this week and wait to see if there is to be any late news. As for my potential transfer plans, well, with Toney frustratingly suspended this week, it looks like my hand has been forced into moving him on for Game Week 15. And although it's disappointing that he was set to face Forest this weekend, in Game Week 16 he'll return and face Man City, which for this reason makes him a pretty easy sell now before the World Cup break. The one free transfer I have available, therefore, does look to be a potentially straightforward one this week, with Callum Wilson spearheading the in-form Newcastle attack looking a sensible replacement. The now 4th place Magpies are also 4th for expected goals this season, as well as being 4th for goals scored. They're also 5th for big chances and 2nd for shots inside the box. All in all, this is a team with very promising underlying numbers, as well as being in excellent form in general, so owning one of their attackers does look to be a solid prospect for the remaining 2 games. Almiron, of course, very much on the radar as well, who's in the form of his life at the moment. But with me currently already owning 2 Newcastle players, I can only own one of this Newcastle attack. And with Tony now suspended, well, Wilson becomes the more convenient move. I've not made the move yet though, due to the uncertainty surrounding Haaland as mentioned before. With Man City facing Fulham at home this game week, of course that's an enticing fixture with big FPL potential on paper. So early team news there could bring some of their options back on the menu. A return for Foden in my side wouldn't be out of the question if he was starting, whilst a differential like Julian Alvarez could be a shout if Haaland was to be confirmed out. Another potential replacement for Tony there. To be fair, Ivan Toney to Callum Wilson is still very much the likely transfer I'll make this week, but that's my reasons for not making the move just yet, and I want to wait until the deadline and remain open to any possibilities. As things stand, at first spot on my bench, Neco Williams at home to Brentford is the one in the waiting should Haaland miss out. Granted, Forest did just ship 5 goals to Arsenal, but as they proved against Liverpool in the previous game week, they're a much stronger side at home. And even though Williams didn't start against Arsenal, seeing as though they conceded 5 may see him come back in. With Brentford also missing Tony through suspension, who knows? That can surely only improve their prospects of a clean sheet there. I could of course put Andreas as first bench here, but I'm not sure I like the idea of double Fulham attack away to Man City. For the captaincy in Game Week 15, well, this could be a make or break decision for my game week, considering on paper my team overall does have a range of difficult fixtures. In my squad currently, Haaland is no doubt the outstanding choice, but for reasons discussed, I'm going to have to wait until the deadline to get more information first before I can confirm captaining the Norwegian. I think if he is to be confirmed out, then in my squad it's very much open to who I'd go for, with no other clear option in my opinion. Mo Salah always a viable option of course, but Cancelo at home to Fulham would certainly be a tempting differential in that case. Man City are understandably favourites for a clean sheet this week according to the bookies, and we all know what Cancelo offers going forward too. So with him also notably rested during midweek for the Champions League, Cancelo is certainly a consideration for the captaincy here, and in my current squad probably my favourite Haaland alternative. Despite Man City looking a good bet for a clean sheet here though, in general I've just been very impressed with Fulham going forward this season. And although of course getting a result is unlikely, I can see Fulham having a good go at City here and potentially getting a goal. Mitrovic has too been pretty much fixture-proof so far this season, and my gut instinct tells me that City could concede here. I think for that reason, with Haaland the only captain I'm convinced about in my team, it's likely I'll give the armband or vice-captaincy to Callum Wilson should I transfer him in this week. Newcastle are in such good form and Wilson has a particularly good record against the Saints. So I think if I do go ahead and make the move of Tony to Wilson this game week, I may just give him the armband or vice-captaincy as well, depending of course on any late Haaland news. So that's all my thoughts and team musings for the upcoming game week. But as mentioned, it's a very difficult game week to be definitive about, because there's still so much up in the air and still a chance of some late City news before the deadline which could change my plans. The Ivan Toney to Callum Wilson move still the most likely, but nothing confirmed yet. Although I'll be waiting until the very last moments of this game week, I'll do my best to post my final team over on Twitter shortly before the game week deadline hits. So if you are interested to see the final locked in team, then providing the game doesn't crash again before the deadline like it did last week, then you can find it there. Good luck to you all for game week 15, FPL responsibly, and I'll catch you all very soon.